We'd love to know what city and state, perhaps what country you're coming from if you're not in the United States. Love to have everyone join us today. We got a special guest, Mr. John Chappelear. So look forward to kind of tapping his brain on emotional intelligence and how to create more positivity in organizations as well as us as individuals. So we'll be bringing him on and talking to him about that just momentarily. We want to give you guys an opportunity to get on, and we also want to make sure that we're all online as well. If you're already signing in too, let us know that you can see us and hear us. And a couple ways you can do that just by putting in the comment box, yes, I can see and hear you. And then also, if you are just coming in and haven't hit that like button yet, please do that. Either like or celebrate or the love or support or insight. If you hear something throughout the conversation today that resonates with you, go ahead and hit one of those appropriate reaction buttons. We love that. We actually thrive off that feedback. And then if you hear points that you like, please pipe back with different questions, comments, any feedback you want to give us. We'd love to see it and hear it. So I'm just going to verify that we definitely are online. Let me check that right now. And Joe, if you know before I do, let me know. Oh,
yes,
good.
we're online.
Awesome. Okay, great. Yes, we are online. It's nice and seamless. It's going to be a great day today, John. Glad to have you on the show today.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So, folks, we've got John Chappelear. He's an international expert on emotional intelligence and creating positivity in individuals as well as in organizations. So we want to definitely unpack a lot of things that are revolved around emotional intelligence and create a more positive environment in these organizations as well as us individually. So thanks for coming on the show today, John.
Thanks, Wallace. I appreciate the time and the interest in asking me to be on. It's a great time to be talking about how to sort of generate positivity both individually and organizationally, because what's going on around us is sometimes pretty dismal, and I write almost every day about that and get a lot of positive feedback from people who are just sort of isolated, or the organizations are sort of dispersed to 50 or 60 different locations, and it's a good time to sort of think about how can I create a more positive sense inside and generate something out to other people too.
Absolutely. And so what you're doing is so needed. We appreciate the positivity. And, Dr. Katie Boston Leary was the one who introduced me to you, and I'm so glad she did. She said, you got to have John on the show. So I was like, sure. You know what? If Katie says he's good, then he's good with me. So
yeah, she's great. I mean, she really is. She's been a real supporter of a lot of the things that we had not met before, but she had sort of been giving me a lot of feedback along the way with the different things that I write on a daily basis. I write a daily nudge to kind of nudge people back to sanity, I guess you would call it that. And then each week I write a positive thought of the week that goes out, one's for personal development and one's for organizational development, because, that's how I said it earlier. We were talking, the thing has just kind of grown from a personal self-improvement and development plan into a plan for teams, and then for departments, then whole organizations, because the issue is really everything runs on how positive the people are in the organization. So if they're positive, engaged, and committed, then guess what happens to the organization? It becomes much more efficient, much more effective. Turnover goes down, absenteeism goes down. And so what's good for the individual is definitely good for the organization.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, I appreciate that perspective that you have. I'm noticing right now our chat. I just want to make sure the chat is working. Joe, double check on that if you don't mind. I want to make sure that the chat feature is working, that folks are able to comment. If you're just now joining us, go ahead and let us know where you're signing in from, but make sure that you definitely can see us and hear us as we move along throughout this discussion. So one of the things I wanted to ask you, John, is what is it right now that folks can do on an individual basis to help them to start getting towards more positivity? Are there some actionable things that they can do to start changing that outlook a bit, and somewhat of a trigger or something you found that's been very effective in that way?
Sorry.
Sure.
So Joe's interrupting. Go ahead, Joe.
Yes. Sorry. There's something going on. I don't know, but when I click on the show, like it's showing it as a preview, but once you try to click on it, like it won't take you to it on LinkedIn.
No, I'm actually in it right now. For some reason, I'm able to get in it, but for whatever reason, it's just not showing the comments.
No, it is still showing 3 participants.
It's showing on you. So we're just going to continue on. We're just going to continue on with our discussion because it looks like it is working. It's just it looks like the chat's not working. Folks, if you're putting in the chats there and it's not coming up, we apologize. Keep putting them in there because who knows? Maybe LinkedIn will turn it on at some point where we can actually see it.
That's right. That's right. You were asking about individuals, what individuals can do. And,
yes.
And that's really the whole genesis of positive change has to start with the individual because it can't start with, I can't start positive energy with somebody else, and I can't, the company can't really start it because it always generates out from the people. So really, and that's sort of where the Daily Six comes in from a component standpoint. It was originally designed as an individual change plan. And the first thing you have to become is willing to be, usually what I say is willing to be uncomfortable with new behavior, because that's the issue. That's why New Year's resolutions always sort of wind up on the floor after about 3 or 4 weeks, is because it's new behavior, and new behavior is always going to be uncomfortable.
Yes.
Trying to change what you eat, trying to change how much exercise, are you going to walk, are you going to start saving money, whatever it might be, if you're not willing to create the actions associated with the change, I suggest people not bother to start, because really it's just all you're going to do then is just create a lot of anxiety and create the stress you're trying to minimize. So the idea is first become willing. I'm willing to change. In the book, I talk about 7 different kinds of willingness, and I'm certainly not going to go through those now, but being willing to not feel like you always have to be in control, and being willing to find new teachers to teach us new lessons. Be willing to think about the fact that teachers don't have to be at the same socioeconomic level as you. They could be a person on the street. I've had lessons from kids to janitors to PhDs, and they've all been teachers on some level for things that have made huge differences in my life. So it's willing to keep your eyes open. And one of the things I talk about is also be willing to become something, because everybody wants to be successful. They want to be a star. They want to be very wealthy, but becoming is where all the work is. It's, I want to become wealthy. I want to become more successful. Well, what are you doing today? And that's the simplest thought. And the question I asked was, okay, then what are you doing today to move you towards that goal? Well, I haven't had time to do that today. I'm going to get on that tomorrow. And it's like, okay, well then just realize that that's going to start tomorrow. It's not going to start today. So, don't create an expectation that's unrealistic for yourself. So, if you want to make the changes, you don't have to, I'm not asking everybody to, move to Sedona and chant in a cave. We just, realize that life is, we've still got dealing with COVID, we've got presidential elections coming up, and we've got all kinds of stress and strain. That's not going to change. And so what I say to people is, people sometimes say, well, it'll get better. And the answer is not really. What will happen is you will get better with it. It's gonna always kind of stay the same. The guys are going to cut you off in traffic, or the person's going to have 12 items in the 10-item line in the grocery store, or whatever it might be, little, big, or in between. That's really not going to change. But what has to change, if things are going to get better, is how I react to that. And that's why the Daily Six is a daily practice. The idea is you become willing, you spend a little time in quiet time, you think about how to be service-focused to others, how to be grateful for where you are rather than angry about where you're not, and be loving and forgiving. And when you're able to do that, when you're able to be grateful and focus on service and be loving and forgiving, you'd be amazed what happens the next day when you wake up. You feel much lighter, you feel much more positive. And the thing I will say is that positive change is probably the most addictive drug I've ever seen, because most people don't have a sense of positive success or positive energy. They're sort of beaten down by current events or financial stresses or whatever it might be. But when all of a sudden you wake up and you feel really good about what you did the day before, it makes a huge difference in how you feel today. And it makes you want to do the same things again and again. So that's why the whole concept was based on doing something every day to make a small step forward that will eventually create a dramatic result.
Oh, I like that. I love the point you mentioned, how instead of saying it will get better, basically putting it back to us that I'll get better.
Right,
I love that.
right. It's really, I mean, I wish I could say, wow, you read my book and the world is just going to change. And reality is that it won't. It'll just be you that changes in the way in which you react to the world. And the thing I'm always hoping in my life is that, maybe enough people will begin to see this, and it will create sort of an impetus for overall sense of change, so that, people will begin to feel that way about each other, rather than just I'm constantly slogging along trying to be a nice person and everybody's kind of beating on me. The thing I've learned over time is that there's a wonderful Mother Teresa prayer that talks about people will be angry and mean, be nice anyway. And it just goes through a whole series, and the answer is always be nice anyway.
Yes.
And it's funny, I worked with a hospital over in the Middle East for many years, and each time I go, I give people this is a willingness bracelet, and it shows you've been to a workshop and you are willing to try some new things. And each time I go there, I go a couple of times a year, and each time I go there, I'll be walking down a hall when I first arrive, and I'll have people going like this in the hallway, hey, I still got my bracelet on. And people want to, I think people really want to feel good, do good, be kind. It's just that's not the behavior they've gotten used to.
Yeah.
And I just like them to kind of get back to that kind of behavior. That's sort of my goal.
So let's talk about I'm curious. Let's talk about these 6 steps.
Okay.
What are these? Now, okay. Now, Laura just said a couple of us aren't getting any sound. So let me just check the sound.
Okay.
Interesting. So let me just check something here one more time. Testing 1, 2. They're not receiving sound. We're having sound go out, but for some reason they're not receiving the sound. Let me refresh this 1 second here.
And Rollis, there's no way for me to look into that because it's not letting me in. Also, Joanne and Patty and Alicia confirmed that they're not able to get in either. It keeps kicking us out.
Oh, wow. So should we start over? Or?
My time is pretty flexible between now and 4:30, so we can do whatever you need to do.
The restream.
Yeah, just go ahead and send a text or a comment here and let them know that we're going to restart this stream here. Let me just see something. Let me check one other thing. Before we do that, though, let me just check one other thing. This is strange because we were on earlier and everything was fine. I don't understand. We had no sound issues. Let me see something here. I did mute my sound on my browser earlier. I know I did do that. And so even when I allow my sound, let's see, I'm still not hearing anything. So, yeah, maybe what we can do is, did you already put the comment in? Or you can't put the comment in. I'm just going to say we're going to restart. We are going to restart the broadcast.
I put the comment in because I am able to join from your account. I can't join from mine.
Okay. So, and I don't even see the comment you put in. But you did put a comment in?
Yes.
Okay, now she said she said she had to tap the video for the sound to work. So she's able to hear sound. Let's ask her, are you able? So I noticed Stacy Parkhurst Nunn says she had to tap for the sound to work. Laura, can you let us know if you're hearing sound now? Before we restart.
Said yes.
So she's able to hear now?
Stacy said yes.
Stacy said yes. but Laura could not. That is so strange. John, this is so weird.
Technology at its finest, I'll tell you.
Yeah, I mean, some people can hear, some people can't. It's like, wow, I'm trying to figure out, how do I even troubleshoot that?
Yeah, and then some of us, literally Patty's having the exact same issue as me on the computer. It just kicks you back to the home page, and then when we try to look it up on our phones, it just shows a black screen.
Oh, wow.
You want to try another time? Do another time?
You know what? For the folks that are here, let's just keep going for the folks that are here.
15 minutes into it, so it's completely up to you guys.
I mean, it's so strange to me because I'm not able to hear, but Stacy says she can hear. Laura, can you let us know? Can you hear? Are you able to hear us? I would like to know if you're able to hear us. Let me hit refresh here. Because John's got some great stuff he's sharing here. I want folks to be able to hear it. Yeah, maybe we should just start over. We're going to start over. We are going to start over. Please visit my profile momentarily. Sorry, everyone. It is a LinkedIn issue. Apparently, that's the only I can figure out. I mean, yeah, that's because it was. I wonder if it's working on YouTube and on. Did we try YouTube and Facebook, Joanna?
Can you repeat that?
Did we try LinkedIn and Facebook to see if it's working there? If the sound is. So okay, so it looks like it says unable to connect, but don't fret. Even though it says unable to connect, sometimes it will actually connect. Joe, I've had that experience before too. And we're going to test the sound as well. Okay, so if you're watching before and didn't hear sound, hopefully you're hearing sound this time. Hopefully the sound is coming through. I'm just going to double check it now, just to make sure that the sound is working. So are you able to hear us on the other
having
end?
the same issue.
Still having the same issue?
Yeah, still kicking me out. It showed me a little icon that you are live.
Okay.
But I keep trying to click on it. It won't let me in.
Very interesting. This is very interesting here. So I have sound levels coming out. So folks, if you're already jumping on again, let us know if you can hear us. We're curious. Folks are having issues connecting and getting on LinkedIn Live today. I've had several of my viewers that's already reported that to me. But if you're here, we're glad you made it. Okay. For those of you who aren't able to make it, I apologize. I don't know what's going on, why LinkedIn is not letting some people in, where it's letting other folks in. I don't know what the reason is. Let's see. Let me just double check where it's posted. Maybe that makes a difference. Let me go back. We've got, if you're just now signing in, we've got John Chappelear. He's an author. He's an expert on emotional intelligence and bringing positivity back in individuals as well as in communities and organizations. And so we're talking about what are those 6 steps to get us there. We've been talking also about what's some of the things that's been kind of changed in our lives that's kind of holding us back. And so let me just double check here one more time to make sure that it's showing up in the feed, and hopefully you are seeing and hearing what we're saying. If you can, go ahead and put in the comments if you can hear us and that you can see us. It's got us like live 3 different times here. Just checking the sound. And on my end, I'm not able to hear the sound right now, which is perplexing. This is really interesting. I don't know, John. I'm embarrassed. I have no idea what is going on here.
Well, it's certainly beyond my my skill set. So I'll just sit back here and try not to just be happy it's you, not me.
Yeah, I mean, this is we literally just had a show a few hours ago, and it worked perfectly.
Yeah.
No sound issues whatsoever. Interesting. And I've got sound levels on my browser where I should be able to hear it. And so, Joe, you're having the same issue on your end?
Yes.
Yeah, the sound is just not coming through. Yeah. Well, what we're going to do, folks, is we're just going to have to cancel for today, and we're going to ask John to come back because obviously, I know they may enjoy looking at us to a point, but with no sound, I think
Yeah,
I think
that's
our
right.
appeal,
Yeah,
both of
I
our
think they
appeal,
could probably just skip that.
the appeal for both of us goes down if we can't talk. If we
No,
can talk, they can't
please.
hear us.
It's one of the good things about having, being a speaker or working in front of audiences for, I don't even know anymore, 20 years doing this and 25 years of running companies. So I'm used to about anything that could go wrong I've experienced before. So really rescheduling is just fine. Please don't worry about it. Let's just make it work and make it work another time.
Yeah. I have one other thing we could possibly try. Wow, this is just so perplexing to me. What in the world could be going on? Let me try one other thing here. Let me try one other thing that may possibly work. Okay, say something else.
Me?
Yeah.
Me? You want me to say something else? I'd be happy to.
Okay, all right.
We were talking about how to create individual change, and how important individual change is on the whole concept of being able to create organizational change or your community change or even change within a country. It has to start with an individual and then spread out from there. It's not something that can really start big and work its way down to the individual.
Yeah, I'm still not hearing the sound. So it takes about a minute of delay to see if it actually is working.
Okay.
And so we'll know pretty quickly here if it's actually working. But I just don't see any issues because I'm getting levels. I got levels before and I'm getting levels now because I'll show you what I mean. So on the software that I'm using here, you can see that I'm getting sound levels.
Right.
See, it's coming through.
Yeah, I can see your meter going up and down. Sure.
Yeah, so it doesn't make any sense to me that they're not able to hear. Not sure where it's getting lost, but I'm not hearing it on either one. So it looks like we just may be out of business here for today.
Okay.
I'm sure glad this didn't happen to. Boy, I tell you, I'm just racking my brain. What in the world could this be?
Yeah.
I'm checking it one more time.
Stacy says she can hear you, and I can hear you from your account.
So folks are able to hear something then. Stacy
The ones that are able to get in, yes, you can hear you.
Okay. So the ones who are able to get in can hear. Well, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Okay. So why don't we do this? Since we do have at least one person here, we'll reschedule and get you back. But for those who have made it through this, I want to reward them with some great content. Can you go with the
sounds like a plan.
Yes. So John, can you go through those 6 steps for us? What are those daily 6 steps that can help us?
Sure.
Let's kind of
Absolutely.
A little bit of an overview.
I'm happy to. The 6 concepts really are willingness, being willing to try something new, to be able to face your fears or give up controlling behavior, being willing to find new teachers to teach us new lessons, because whatever got you where you are, which is usually what's up in here, so what got you here is not going to get you somewhere good. It's going to get you in the same cycle that you've been in, so find some new teachers. The second component is quiet time, daily quiet time, whether that be prayer, meditation, mindfulness, whatever works for you. The key is to combine some kind of quiet time with also the setting of a good intention for the day. So prayer, meditation, mindfulness, and intention setting, which creates a path for the day so that you can follow it. I've always said that the purpose of a path is not so much to sort of mark the trail. The purpose of a path is to help you notice when you're not on it anymore. So if you've set a path for yourself, it's pretty easy to notice, wow, that wasn't my intention for today, and bring you back to the path. So it's very helpful to do that. You have to do that. Quiet time is also important to do in the morning and in the evening, because the one thing that it does in the evening is it does the one thing that I find successful people continuously fail to do, which is to give themselves credit for the things they did well today. Usually what happens is I beat myself up about all the stuff that I didn't get done. Even though I got 20 things done and 2 things didn't get done, it's those 2 things that everybody wants to focus on. And so what I say is give yourself some credit for what you did today. And if you didn't get 2 things done, make a little note, get up tomorrow morning and put it on the list tomorrow. If you think you can fix it, get in the car, go back to work, or go back to the desk, or open up your computer and do something about it. But don't just let it keep awake all night. Number 3 is service, to be service focused on the needs of others. That changes the old famous Witham category of what's in it for me. It changes what's in it for me to what's in it from me. So what am I putting into the relationships that I get, not what am I getting out of it? And the more that I focus on what I'm putting in, the more I get out. Isn't it?
Yes,
it is one of those weird paradoxes.
Right.
Number 4 is love and forgiveness. Love and forgiveness is, to me, love is, and this is, I think, where when we designed the program for recovery, families in recovery, love was the thing that sort of drew the drug counselor to me, was the fact that I defined love simply as understanding the needs of someone else and treating those needs as important as if they were my own needs. That's it. That's the end of it. So that to me works whether it's a customer service department, whether it's a wife, a husband, a child, a parent. If I'm thinking about their needs and treating their needs as important as my own, it works across the board. Forgiveness is simply, a friend of mine always called it giving up all hope of a better yesterday and just letting the past go, because it isn't going to change. Again, we were talking earlier about what can you change, and the only thing I can change is how I relate to things. And how are you going to relate to the past? Is it going to control you, or are you going to learn from it and let it go? And that's love and forgiveness. I've always kept those together. My son never could quite figure out why I wanted them to be just one thing. And to me, they're sort of 2 sides of the same coin. Number 5 is gratitude, to be grateful for all things at all times, because gratitude is something that we can be anytime we want to be. It's a complete choice of ours. We want to be grateful for something, or we can choose not to be grateful. I can't tell you how many times in my career something has seemed bad and has worked out to be great. I've had coaching clients for years who have said, I got fired and I had to move home with my parents, which is where I met my wife, or I met my husband, or I ran into 3 of my friends from high school and we started a new company. And none of that would have happened if I had not lost my job, which I thought was terrible.
Right.
Or, things happen in their lives and they want to judge it. And I keep saying, please don't judge it today. It's not necessarily good or bad or right or wrong. Let's just go with wait and see. Because, if we're not so quick to judge, and we can learn to be grateful, but sometimes it takes some time. I mean, if in the book I talk about having a bank come in and shut a company down of mine that really didn't deserve being shut down. And it took a long time for me to be grateful for the bank to have done that. But if that hadn't happened, I would never have been on this path. I would have never written a book. I would have never, been traveling around the world. None of these things would have happened if that hadn't happened. When you look back, sometimes it's a little clearer. And what gratitude can do for you is save you a lot of pain and agony while you're sort of getting through to the point of acceptance. And then finally, I think the thing that sort of sets apart what I do from a lot of the other things is in the 6th component, I say, okay, now do something. Books are great, tapes are great. I've got a book, I'd love for you to buy it. I've got, audio book. These are great too, but if you're not going to do anything with it, save the money and, do something else that you're going to actually enjoy. But, nothing works unless you do something. In sales, the old line was nothing works until you sell something. And in the change business, nothing works until you change something. You change it, you get comfortable with it, it becomes part of what you do on a daily basis, and then all of a sudden you sit back and go, I can't understand why I didn't do this before. And the answer is maybe it wasn't clear, maybe you didn't realize what you could or couldn't control. Sometimes I've said to people, when you lose emotional control, when you're arguing with someone, you delegate control of you over to the other person.
Yes.
And many times that's enough. Just that notice is enough to get them to stop doing that, because they don't want to delegate control of the other person. And they never realized that when they lost control emotionally, that's exactly what they were doing. They were delegating control of themselves over to the other person.
Yeah. And
that's all six.
What's that?
That's all six.
That's awesome. So what I'd like to do at this point, those in the comments, let me know which one of those resonated with you the most. Which one do you think is the most actionable from your perspective? And I wanted to kind of delve into what you said too about seeing if something's working or not. I think you helped us to see that maybe we're checking in too often or too quickly to see if something is in our favor, because if something bad happens, we tend to look at it immediately saying, oh, this is terrible. But I think what I got from what you just said, we may want to delay that analysis for a little bit. Is that right?
Right. Yeah. In the book, I call that a gift of devastation. It's not a gift you want to get, and you can't return it, but it clearly works itself out to be a gift. I always hate to use this as an example, but 9/11 was one of the most horrific days in the history of the country. But I was traveling all over the country in those days doing workshops and talking about positive change. And it was amazing. Within a week of that happening, I noticed the fact that parents were talking about talking to their kids more openly. The kids were talking about talking to each other when I would work at a school and talk to the school. I noticed that my wife consciously made a decision to make sure that she gave our son a hug and a kiss every morning before he went and got on the school bus. Now, it's not like she was being neglectful before, but she was being intentional with good behavior after.
Yes.
It was one of those things where you've been told your whole life it's one day at a time. Nobody promises you tomorrow. And yet it was that situation that actually brought that viscerally back to people to really understand what that meant. And while that was a horrific experience, it brought so much positive change in the way in which people relate to each other, in which they understand the value of each day as a treasure. I certainly wouldn't say it was worth it, but I would say that from almost any negative experience, good can come from it if you seek for it.
That's a good point. I like that. Also appreciated what you mentioned about having like that quiet time. And, for me, you mentioned prayer. Prayer is an important part of my life as well. And also meditating upon just my life in general and what I want to work on. Sure. Give me an idea of how much time or how much time you would suggest even when it comes to our career for thinking about meditating on what are some things we want to do with our career. How often should it be? How long should it be? And is there any studies or any data that you have you can share with us that help to reinforce how this practice is helpful?
I'm sure that there are some meditation or mindfulness studies because that's become much more popular in the last few years. I don't have any of that data. I certainly could get it for you. If we end up doing something again, I'll be happy to have it ready for you. But what I would say to you to answer that question is the thing that's most important to me to suggest the time that you should give is the time you're willing to give. And usually that means, at least initially in the beginning, a very short period of time.
Right.
If you're a person who is prayerful, then you're comfortable with spending time, quietly, alone. But if you're not a prayerful person or you've never really done meditation, I'd be really happy if you spent 1 minute at something quiet and separate. So the key is, again, it's a daily program. Like, just like you're talking, I'm sure you have a daily prayer, habit. And so the idea here is you can't pray for an hour on Tuesday and then that carries you through the week.
Right.
Yeah. I'd rather have you do 5 minutes on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So the idea here is, how much time can you give me? Not will you take, but how much time will you give to find yourself in a better frame of mind? And most times when you first start, your brain says, we don't have time for this. You got to get moving. I can't just be sitting here. We're not fixing any problems just sitting here.
Yeah.
Come on. And it's just, the idea is that I have never trained anybody in 40 years, I guess, that has not said to me, once they got to a point of maybe 5 minutes a day of meditation, I have never had a single person say to me, that was a complete waste of my time. The only people I've had say that to me are people who have tried and gotten up to maybe 30 seconds or a minute, and then all of a sudden their brain takes over and they just can't do it.
Right. Okay.
But if you're willing to try and you can get it up to even a little teeny bit, 5 minutes at a time. I'm not looking for an hour or 2 hours. I'm not looking for floating off the floor. You don't need to do any of that. Just allow yourself to be quiet a little bit. Allow yourself to, let me take these off. When I'm close, sometimes when I'm close to the screen, it gets in my way. Allow yourself the time to relax enough to be able to find a quiet place, because that's where all the daily six can happen. That's where gratitude begins to bubble up from. That's where love and forgiveness bubbles up from. If all we do is go from activity to activity to activity to activity, no new behavior is able to seep in. We have to have some spaces. It's like music. The thing that makes music is the space between the notes. If you didn't have a break between the notes, it'd just be a constant cacophony of noise.
Right.
So what we need to do is think of meditation and prayer as that type of thing. When I'm working with people I said earlier on quiet time, I said it creates a path for you, and that's what it can do for you. Is you can set your intention and identify what it is that you want to do today. I've had lots of people. Probably the most consistent way I've had people tell me if things have worked for them is that they would take, I have a Daily Six card, which of course I don't have one right here in front of me, but I have a little Daily Six card, which is a fold-over business card. And I've had people tell me that they've taken that and stuck it up on the corner of their computer or taped it on a refrigerator, and they've looked at it every day and said, well, which one of these am I going to focus on today? Because I would rather have you focus on one than worry about, oh my gosh, 6 is going to overwhelm me.
Right.
That's okay. Just focus today on being more loving or more forgiving. And then tomorrow you can work on being more grateful. You don't have to do everything today. It's a daily plan. It's also something that I try to get people to realize that there's no, you can't do it wrong. So there's no sense in quitting. I've had people go, well, I went off my diet last week, so forget the diet. I'm not going to do that anymore. It's like, okay, if you didn't pray and meditate and you didn't set a good example for yourself today, didn't just do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's okay. Get your whole life to work on this.
So John, looks like Stacy, what resonated with her, she commented on this. She says she really liked your perspective on love. And I remember how you coupled love with forgiveness. Can you expand on that some more for us?
Sure. I don't know exactly why, to tell you the truth, but when I wrote it out, it seemed like it went together for me. And I had a friend of mine who said, and I've stuck with that concept, is that it's kind of two sides of the same coin. You really can't be loving unless you're forgiving. And unless you're forgiving, you really can't be loving. So they really do sort of fit together nicely. If I'm not letting the behavior that you exhibited to me carry forward into tomorrow, the next time I see you, I'm not going to be carrying that negativity with me. I'm going to let that go. When I let go of the judgment, anger, resentments that build up, what we usually do is we walk around in our lives and we take a big bag and we put all the resentments and judgments and anger into the bag, and then we throw it over our shoulder and we drag it home with us. And then we make a really exciting family evening while we exhibit all the anger and frustration out on our family. And then we pack it all back up the next morning and we drag it back to work again. And if that bag either doesn't get filled up, or when you fill it up, you throw it away, the next day you can be loving because you're not carrying anything forward. You can pay attention to the needs of others because you're not carrying resentments from the behavior of previous actions. And the thing about this is one of the things that was the hardest in the recovery program that we did. I've had wives or husbands or children or parents say, I'm never going to forgive this person because of their behavior. Never. I've given them chances and chances and chances and chances, and they've always violated my trust. And I said, forgiveness is not 100%, but forgiveness is mostly for you. It's mostly for you to lighten the burden that you have put upon yourself. Nobody else has put that there. You're giving yourself an opportunity to forgive this person and let go of the anger and resentment that's in your heart, not in their hearts. If you want to be able to forgive this person, you can't carry all this anger. Plus, it's not healthy for you to have this stress and anger internally on a daily basis being held in perpetuity until you finally are able to release it. And so for me, forgiveness is really sort of the key. For me, forgiveness is the key to salvation. If you want sort of a big concept. I mean, forgiveness puts us in the moment. Like gratitude and forgiveness both sort of put us in the immediate now moment. And that's where everything takes place, whether we like to think about it or not. Can't take place in a minute from now, and it can't take place a minute ago. It has to take place now. All forgiveness has to take place here. All gratitude takes place here. When I make a gratitude list, it's funny how when I'm sitting down making a gratitude list, it is absolutely brings me into the moment. I can't be thinking about what my kid said last week or the fact that the guy cut me off in traffic on the way over here today. It brings me into the moment. And the more I can spend time in this moment, the less stress and anger, anxiety, or frustration I have about the rest of the world.
I love that.
So that's why I have them together.
I was just thinking about how sometimes I'm a big believer in the gratitude thing too, and I like to in the mornings think about what are some things I'm grateful for. And if you're not in the habit of doing it or used to doing it, it's incredibly difficult. And the reason why, and maybe you've experienced this, I'll be with someone who is very dissatisfied with something they're facing in their life right now, and I'll ask them, okay, what's one thing that you're grateful for right now? I can't think of anything. It's like there's a mental block.
I know.
I know. It's okay. Just give me just one thing. Just one thing. It's something you may have to even help them. But right. It seems like once they get going, then it starts to.
The exercise build. That I do with a lot of people is I say, okay, well, I'll tell you what. Write down 5 things that you're proud of.
Okay.
And they don't have any problem with pride. It's like, my job, my family. It's like, I'm proud of all these things. I said, okay, now go back and scratch out the word proud and write the word grateful for.
Ooh, I like that.
And the other component of it is not only is it easier for the person to understand that, it changes. If I'm proud of my children, it's a whole different relationship than I'm grateful for my children.
Yes.
If I'm proud of being married or I'm grateful to be married, it's just a little wordplay, but it makes a huge difference in the way people relate to being grateful for something or being proud of something.
Ooh, I like that. I love that. That's a gem right there. That one, as well as the things. For those who missed it, the first one, I want to make sure you repeat this part about folks who say, I hope things get better or things will get better. Can you talk about that again?
Sure. I mean, we were talking about that earlier, and the idea is that that's the issue that I have with so many, self-help people is that, if you do this, everything's going to get better. Just follow my instructions and everything's going to get better. And then here comes John saying, no, that's not going to be true at all. But what I say is, things may get better. I don't know. They may not. But if they don't, what you will be guaranteed is you will get better with the things. The world is not going to change just because I started meditating. It would be nice if that was true, but it's not. The world is not going to change because I've decided to start being more loving and more forgiving. Again, I said to you that Mother Teresa has a wonderful prayer that talks about be nice anyway, be caring anyway. People may be angry at you, but be kind anyway. And it's a very easy thing to look up, and it's a wonderful prayer to sort of remind yourself that what people do is one thing and what I do is something completely different. So the idea here is that while the world may stay the same and people may still cut me off in traffic and still people may still, like I said earlier, show up with 12 items in the 10-item grocery store line. I will get better at dealing with that. Yes. I will find myself being more relaxed and just letting go of those kinds of things that used to wrap me around an axle. And I wrote this book originally to help me with my AAA personality and my sense of entitlement, my sense of resentment, and my whiplash anger that I thought was really powering me through success. It was amazing because all I had really done is burn through my family. My kids couldn't stand me. My wife divorced me. You know, I'm living in a hotel, but I'm thinking it's really cool because you're living in a hotel. How can that be bad? Until I realized that I wasn't living a life. I was living a marketing plan. You know, because all I'm trying to do is be 20% ahead of last week. That's all.
Yeah.
And not be, and this is where the original concept we were talking about in the very beginning was success and significance. I was tremendously successful, but I was highly insignificant in the lives of the people around me.
Ooh.
You know, on the type A, growing up in DC, you know, being invited to all the parties and stuff is really important. But if your kids can't stand you and your wife doesn't really want you around and your friends are kind of but you're on the A list, you're getting invited to all the stuff, the embassies and everything, isn't that great? Or I have a nice car, I belong to a nice country club. You know, when you finally realize those are really nice things to have, but they're not essential things to have, is the difference between being successful and being significant. And so for me, I don't say don't be successful. I say if you want to be successful, that's great, but be significant no matter what. And regardless of your level of success, you can always be significant.
And when you say significant, you're talking about primarily to the people who are most important to you in your lives. Is that
right.
Correct?
Okay. Exactly. That was the first thing. I mean, one of the things I told you earlier about the bank coming in and sort of closing down a company that really shouldn't have been closed down. And when that happened, I noticed that the only people that were around me, the only people that were there to be supportive of me, were the people that I had pretty much ignored while I was running for this. I don't know what you want to call it, but the brass ring out here I was trying to get. I was ignoring all of these people, trying to be something on the success level rather than trying to be something on the significance level. And when it was all gone, the only people who were still around were the people that I had pretty much ignored. Yeah.
Now, John, I want to ask you something though. When you were going through that and going after the success, and you said you were ignoring the people that loved you, how were you self-justifying it to yourself that I'm doing it for them, or were you saying this is for me? Or how were you justifying it?
Oh, absolutely. It's always for them. You know, I'm doing this for you, and that's absolute baloney. I mean, we are doing it for our sense of ego. I mean, and I can say I'm sacrificing all of this for you, and work. You know, baloney. I'm doing this for me, and. Everybody likes it's nice to pretend that, but it's really not the truth. The truth is, I like being in the spotlight. It takes being an entrepreneur or running a large company, there's a certain amount of ego that goes along with that.
Yeah.
And if you can, what usually happens is it's pretty easy to feed that ego on a success level. It's much harder on a significance level because you have to give up some of the trappings of success. You have to go home and see your kids. You have to show up at school events. You have to go to soccer and back to school nights. And you have to show up at anniversary parties instead of showing up late because you forgot them. Yeah. It's like I always say that emotion, love is not a noun, it's a verb. You know, it really is what you do, not what you say. And it's the same thing with success and significance. Successful people promise all sorts of things to get successful. Significant people have to do things to prove themselves significant. They can't just promise things. And so it's a matter of, walking your talk, I guess, is a great way to, people have used that phrase over time. Yeah.
Before we close out, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what you've done in terms of shifting from individual focus to more now of a organizational or a community-based focus. Tell me about that transformation you've made with your program, and how that's starting to kind of help these organizations or communities to take these daily 6 steps you're talking about.
Well, initially it was an individual program that then spread out. I had a number of friends of mine who were also business owners in DC, and pretty soon they were calling and saying, could you come and do some of this with my people? And then that sort of spread into organizational development, and then that led to what we started referring to as Daily 6 culture. We built a culture around being loving and forgiving and grateful, and all of a sudden it changed the way in which organizations were working. Their absenteeism was going down, the productivity was going up, and then the next thing we did was we began to build a program around recovery. We not for addicts or alcoholics, or not for their families, because there's already great programs for those, but there really wasn't anything to build a relationship back, build a family relationship back. And so we created a program around the Daily 6 that would help rebuild and re-strengthen the trust that was violated between behavior and the family behavior and whoever the addict or alcoholic might have been, whether it was a mother or a sister or a son or a child or whatever it was. And then finally, what we've done is we've created a new program for first responders, people who are trying to work in and live in high stress, high pressure situations, and are called on regularly to try and make calculated, logical judgments when they're in situations that's counterintuitive to. They're under tremendous stress. They're pushed physically, mentally, and emotionally to their limits. And then we ask them to make an intelligent, emotionally competent decision, and they haven't been trained to do that. They've been trained more to just react in a way in which it just simply stops whatever that situation is, stops it. And we've been working with the police departments to try and find ways to rebuild a sense with the Daily 6 material and also emotional intelligence, to work those two together to help give frontline officers, and it's also for fire and for 911 operators, people who are under tremendous amount of stress that are trying to make good decisions under really difficult circumstances. It just seems to me, when I've watched situations, that if somebody had a different set of skills than they currently have, there would be an opportunity for them to take a breath and take a step back, reconsider the situation they're in, and then move forward with a more calculated and reasonable approach, rather than simply move forward under a tremendous amount of stress until it just evolves or devolves into violence or harm, some sort of harm. Yes. And I know that I've worked with enough people over time, I know nobody shows up for work excited about hurting somebody else.
Right.
Nobody does. You wouldn't go into a police job or a fire job if your purpose was to hurt people. The idea is you want to help people. So let's give them the skills to be able to do that, and instead of making them helping them show up on the job every day without the skills that will help them feel more successful at the end of the day.
Well, and certainly that's something that's needed. I mean, what you're talking about could potentially save a civilian's life, depending on how that police officer or that first responder responds in a very highly pressurized situation. And we've seen many examples of how things got bad quickly and they really didn't have to. I mean, there were other options.
And I agree with that. It's also important from the officer side too. The guilt and anguish that must go along with being the person who contributed to the violence. It's probably more devastating to be the person on the receiving end, or their family if you have a death associated with it. But the person who caused this is probably suffering tremendously as well in their own way. So anytime we can minimize that level of fear, I mean, of course, that's usually what drives this, is some sort of level of fear. You know, it's a fear of having somebody get away from me, or having something not work the way they want it to work. So, but the idea here is but there are both sides that are struggling. There are both sides that have issues. And the idea, I believe, is that the program that we have designed, and we're currently working with a major city here in the Southeast U.S., to get a program that's really honed in exactly on how to help the police most effectively, how to make sure that both the police feel better about it and the citizenry feel better about it. I want to, just like we were doing with the alcoholics and addicts, I want to bring these two groups back together in a much more positive way and minimize the level of distrust and disharmony that currently exists.
It sounds like what you're trying to do too is improve the decision making within the heat of the moment, so that they're not as what we've experienced and seen, where they don't make these catastrophically bad decisions, because it's a highly pressurized situation, to help them make better decisions in those moments. Would you say that's an important goal of your program?
Yeah, absolutely. The idea here is that, again, like I said, I don't think anybody goes into it to have these catastrophic results. I think people go into it, and what happens is the situation gets out of control, and they don't have that emotional training to be able to bring themselves back under control. I call that a gift of the second thought. It's like we just keep going forward. I used to say, it reminded me of when if you ever rode a wave in the ocean, there's a point at which when you're riding a wave, you can always drop back, always. But if you commit to the wave is now in charge, and you just sort of go with it. And it's the same way with anger. With anger, there's a point at which we can always drop back. But if we don't know where that is, or we haven't been trained in learning how to get back from there, we won't be able to. We'll just end up letting the wave take us in, and the anger or the frustration or the fear, whatever it is, will be the driver, not my sense of emotional stability. That will not be the driver of the situation. And that's what should be driving the situation.
Yeah, it seems like you remind me of something. I want to say I read it in one of Stephen Covey's books, where he talks about the space between the stimulus and the response, widening that space.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And what happens is, what this training will do is give you some space between the stimulus and the response. It's not just ready, fire. It's just, there's a break in between here. So it can be, this happened, so I do this. It's like, well, this happened, so let me think about what is the smartest way to respond to this.
Yeah.
And when that happens, I believe, and again, that's why I'm working with the police department to make sure that this is, I don't want to just be some guy who shows up and says, hi, I have all the answers, because I don't. I have a plan that I know that I've seen work across the board, creating permanent positive change. And I really do think that, given the right guidance and the right direction, which I'm currently, the police force I'm working with is wonderful about helping me say, yes, that would work great, or no, that wouldn't work too well. And I know when we're finished with this, it'll be a plan that will work perfectly on the street, helping frontline people stay emotionally in control. And that's the thing. When you have emotional control internally, then you have influence on the situation and the people around you. Because that's all we have on the situation and the people around us is influence. We don't have any control over them. And anytime we think we have control over them, we usually are running into trouble. But the only time we have control over or influence over others is when we have emotional control of ourselves. And in that, it works out much, much better every time.
So I have a question for you.
Sure.
Would you rather only be able to speak recognizable quotes from movies and songs, or have to constantly use pig Latin forever?
Well, sadly, I'm old enough to remember when kids would speak pig Latin in school, and I couldn't understand it when I was a kid, so I certainly don't want to do it now. Speaking in quotes would probably make me gag after a while, but at least I would understand the quotes. I would never understand the pig Latin, so I have to go with the quotes.
Awesome. I love it. I tell you, I have to give you some extra props, so to speak, for you hanging in there and being so patient with us through all of our sound issues. It's been event filled through this hour in terms of the sound issues, but your content, for those who were able to listen and were able to get in, it certainly was enjoyable. I'm sure for them as well as it was for me. Those in the comments, if you would, let us know what you think. What was it that resonated with you the most from today? I know Stacy, she mentioned love. Right. Let us know, Stacy, if we were able to expound on that enough for you. And I'd also love to hear what your answer would be on if you had to make a choice of speaking only recognizable quotes from movies and songs or have to use Pig Latin forever. Which one would you pick? Well, listen, John, we're going to have you back on the show very soon. We're going to reschedule this, and I can, to the best of my ability, promise you that the sound will be better the next time. But definitely thank you for all of your thoughts today. What's the best way for folks to get in touch with you in the future? Is it through LinkedIn?
Well, the easiest thing is probably go to my website, which is johnchappelear.com.
Okay, very good.
Or if Chappelear is too complicated to learn how to spell, then just use Changing the Focus. Changingthefocus.com works as well. They both take you to the same website. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I've got all of the social media stuff. It's most of it is John Chappelear. Facebook's John Chappelear, LinkedIn's John Chappelear. I think Twitter is John Chappelear. So if you type in John Chappelear, you'll pretty much end up finding me somewhere on social media. My website is John Chappelear. My email address is john@johnchappelear.com.
Love it.
So you can usually find me at that. I'm sure, Rollis, in the in invitations and things that you sent out, you have my name spelled out there. So it's pretty easy to figure out. But that's the easiest way, is just to reach out through social media, and I read pretty much most of the posts every day. So I'd love to, if anybody has questions or concerns or follow-up issues, I'd be happy to talk to you.
Great. And we're going to have you tagged in too. We're going to have you tagged in so they'll be able to see your name, but be able to click on your name. It'll go to your profile. We'll also put your website in the comments as well. And we're going to have to kind of go back and see which one of these actually had sound that people can hear. We'll delete the ones that didn't and make it easier for folks to find the one that had the content on it. So thanks again for being on today. We'll have you back soon. Appreciate all what you're doing, your contributions you're making. Love to see the results of your program as you help some of these police departments and fire departments to improve. We'd love to see some success stories from that. That'd be wonderful to see, because we need a lot of help in those areas.
I'm very excited about the way this next 6 months should be rolling out. So, stay in touch. I'd love to keep you abreast of how the changes are working.
Very good. So I'm going to have you just do a couple of poses with me for the editors for editing in the future for our thumbnails. Okay, so we'll just do a happy pose first. And then maybe we could do something a little crazy. Very good. Well, John, you were great today. Thank you so much. Appreciate you being on.
Thank you, Rollis. And thank you very much, Joanna, for all the behind the scenes hard work you did.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care. That's a beautiful daughter you have there too, by the way.
Thank you.
You take care.
All right, guys. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.